In another course, we talked about reel and line class breakdown, as well as the best uses for each and why. Today, we're going to take a closer look at reel specifics and how to use different aspects of each individual reel. A conventional level drag offshore reel has several different parts to it that every angler should know and understand. There is your drag lever, free spool, strike, preset dial, button, clicker, handle, and high-low gear. The drag lever determines the amount of drag on the reel. But before we get into that, let's discuss a little bit what drag means. Drag is determined by friction plates inside the reel. The higher the drag, the more pressure it takes to overcome it. Pressure in this situation would be from the movement of the boat, the fish pulling from the hook, and the amount of line that might be in the water. For example, if the drag is set at 6 pounds, any amount of pressure that exceeds 6 pounds will start removing line from the reel. Let's get into the different aspects of a reel and how to use it. This is the drag lever. It adjusts from free spool all the way to sunset and determines the amount of drag at any given time. Free spool is exactly what it sounds like. It's when the line has complete freedom and can spool off with absolutely zero drag. Now, this is also where most backlashes happen and where you want to be if you're feeding a billfish. Strike is the soft spot of the reel and where the reel naturally stops before the button. This is where the drag needs to be set to set the hook and where most of the fight will be placed. It's very rare for the drag to exceed strike. In the event that the angler, crew, or captain wants to increase the drag past strike, that's when we use the button. The button is right above strike, and you have to push it down actively to increase the drag to that point. You may increase it either to on the button, which is what you see here, or past the button, all the way to sunset. The preset dial allows you to adjust the amount of drag on the reel. This is something that should be done before you go offshore. You need a spring scale, and you want your rod to be fully mounted in the gunnel or in the chair with a buddy on the dock. The reel should be set to strike when doing this. If the drag needs to be adjusted, bring the drag lever to free spool before tightening or loosening the drag, then back up to strike again to test it. A little bit goes a long way. Per Shimano, a good rule of thumb when adjusting drag is 30% of your reel capacity at strike. But as you can see on this particular 130, we set it for heavy tackle bluefin fishing. B stands for bite, which is where we wanted to be when the fish ate. 40 pounds was where we were set at strike, and we were able and often fighting these bluefin tuna all the way to sunset at about 70 pounds of pressure. The handle is what you use to reel in the fish and gain line. There's no point in turning the handle if line is leaving your reel. That means if the fish is pulling at a pressure that exceeds your drag, there's no point in turning the handle because you will not gain the line. In these situations, it can be highly frustrating as an angler. But this is your moment to take a breath, relax, and be ready to gain line when the fish gives you the opportunity to do so. In events when gaining line can be very challenging, you have the option to switch from high to low gear. Low or low gear alters your retrieval rate and allows you to gain line easier, but at a lower rate of retrieval. So if there's extra pressure on the line, but you're able to gain slightly, go to low. The second you can switch to a higher retrieval, you're going to want to gain on that fish even quicker. Lastly, you have the clicker. This emits a clicking sound when line is removed from the reel if the clicker is on. This can be really useful in heavy tackle fishing, especially when fishing with lures, because it adds a little bit more pressure on the reel. That being said, for this reason, I never fish with my clickers on in my light tackle fishing because I don't want that fish to feel any of the pressure on the line. And the clicker is going to do just that, emit a little bit of pressure. When storing your reels, you want to keep the drag setting as low as possible. This gives your friction plates in the interior and your entire mechanism a chance to have a break and not get loosened in the storing process. Keeping your clicker on can even allow you to keep your reel in free spool without losing any line off of it. And that's a breakdown on all the aspects and parts of a lever drag offshore conventional fishing reel.